For color, I'm going to use several types of clay. This is Australian reef clay, which is dark red, and then French rose clay, and Moroccan red clay, and French red clay, and the two of those together I'm going to mix to get an orange color, and then Brazilian gold clay for yellow, French green clay, which will give a very pale green. Unfortunately, there's not a bright green you can get from any natural color I know of. And then finally, Brazilian purple clay. I'm going to use about a teaspoon of each of these, and I'm going to mix them with about a tablespoon of water each to have them prehydrated before I mix the soap in. What I have here is my mixed oils, which are just above room temperature. This is the lye water, which is also just a little warm, not very much. And I'm going to mix those. Doesn't really matter whether you pour lye into oil or oil into lye at this point, depending on the container you want to mix in. And then I'm going to use a stick blender to emulsify this. I want to bring it to a good emulsion, but I don't want to go so long that it starts solidifying. Now I'm using 6 colors, so I'm going to ladle this out into my colored clays. And right now it's just about as thin as water. There's almost no texture there at all. And as we go here, you'll probably see it getting thicker. I'll whisk those up. They're still pretty liquid, so I'll probably have to stick blend these a bit more. So when you're stick blending colors, you can start out with your light colors and move toward dark. So I'm going to go yellow, orange, pink, red, purple without rinsing the blender, but I'll have to rinse the blender before I go to green because that doesn't match anything. And a little bit of dilution of one color and another doesn't matter. I'll just rinse this in plain water before I go to the green. So this is a corner pour, which means I'm going to pour it into one corner of the mold and it's going to ooze across and make layers as it goes. I want to do it in rainbow color order. Red, pink, orange, yellow, green, purple. And I'm going to do that for several cycles. I've propped up this end of the mold just a little so that things will tend to run that direction. I want to pour right in the corner. Maybe half a cup of each. Each new layer pushes the previous one ahead of it, so you end up with nice striping. Deeper it gets, assuming that your batter is still pretty liquid, the more they tend to blend when you pour it in, so you've got to pour for a while to get to a pure color. This is still separating pretty well. I like to get at least 4 cycles. Sometimes I get as many as 6. So this is the 3rd cycle. It's just beginning to thicken a little bit. It's kind of a good thing. That'll help keep it from blending too much with the previous color. So there's 3 full cycles. Now I want to use half of what's left for the 4th cycle. Got quite a lot of blending of that pink. That's not a good clear stripe. Orange is better. Now for the 5th cycle, I'm going to use all but just a little bit of the dregs. I'm going to be able to pour maybe a tablespoon out of that the 6th time around. This is still really liquid. That's a good thing. Get some of your prettiest complicated swirling in this pouring corner, so you want as many stripes in there as you can get. It's usually the prettiest bar of soap in the whole mold. Get just a drop of red and finish with that. So that looks good. That would make pretty soap if you used it just as it is, but I'm going to swirl it now. So I'm going to use, you can use the fat end of a chopstick or the thin end, and the thicker it is, the more it's going to drag color. I'm going to use, in this case, the thin end. And I'm going to make radial swipes from the pouring corner. So I go down to the end, move over about an inch, come back to the pouring corner, down about an inch away, over and back. So again, I could stop right there, and that would be pretty. This is certainly busy enough that I don't need anything else, but up here where I have bigger stripes, you can add some interest by using concentric circles, and that gives a little more complication to the pattern. And then I always finish by making a swipe the whole way around, and that just kind of levels it out. So that's finished. And I could just let that sit now until tomorrow, and it would harden. Instead, I'm going to put it in an oven, hold it about 170 degrees Fahrenheit, and that'll cause it to harden much faster. It will also cause it to go through what's called a gel state, where the soap actually melts. Right now it's just dissolved or emulsified with the water, but I want the fats to actually melt in there. And particularly when you're using clays as a color, you get much brighter, clearer colors if you gel it than if you do it at room temperature. The last thing I'm going to do, you'll be able to see here, there's little tiny bubbles of air. Before I put that in the oven, I'm going to just slam it on the table a few times, and that tends to bring those bubbles to the surface, break them. As it heats up, some of them will also break, but that'll help keep the surface of that soap looking nice and shiny. So I'm going to bake it for at least an hour, maybe more, at about 170. So this is the corner pour soap, and this was done in a wooden mold that was made to make 15 bars, and it has pre-cut sides. So that allows you to cut the bar very straight just by lining up your knife with the slots in the side of the mold. And you just press down through that. So there's the slot. Because of the slots, the mold would leak if you didn't line it, so it's always lined with freezer paper. But that also means then that it's easy to get the soap out of the mold because it doesn't stick to the wood. So those are the 15 bars. Peel the paper off of it. You can tell that was the pouring corner because it got a lot more very fine stripes on it. There's a cut edge. It's a very nice pattern on the sides. This is the edge that was against the mold at the bottom. Cut edge.